Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today. If you have any questions during the session, please submit them using the Q&A button at the top of the interface. Those questions will be answered at the end. This webinar will be recorded and you'll receive a copy of it delivered to your email account after the webinar. I hope you enjoy this webinar, and I'll now hand you over to our expert, Christian Feldbacher, who's the CEO at Felgo. Over to you, Christian.
Hi everybody. So our life as developers is tricky. On the one hand, applications grow bigger in complexity and size, while on the other hand, we should develop as quickly as possible. This means we constantly need to balance between the time we spend for developing a new feature and on the other hand, for the quality that we deliver. So in this webinar, I'll present the solution to these problems. I'll show you how you can work more efficiently with Qt to achieve a higher quality in shorter time by using Felgo, based on our learnings from more than 200 software projects with Qt for mobile, desktop, and embedded in the past 10 years. So let's break down the development process into pieces to find out how we can get more efficient. Well, we start with writing code. Then we save, compile, deploy, and then test the code that we wrote. I'll show you in this webinar how you can save time in each of these steps. But let's now look into the compile and deploy steps first. These two steps usually take between 10 seconds up to 5 minutes, depending on the size of your project. So this means how many source code files there are, how big these source code files are, how many dependencies you've got, and then of course also on the target devices and target hardware that you deploy to. So this compilation deployment process works pretty smooth and fast, usually for desktop. However, if you deploy for mobile devices, for example, this can take up to several minutes. And if you deploy to embedded, this can take ages, up to 10 minutes or even more. So what do you usually do during this time that you wait for the compile and deployment steps to complete? Well, most developers tend to do something else then. And especially the longer the process takes, right? And what I experienced many times personally myself was that while I waited for the deployment step to complete it, I coded something else then, and by the time it was finished, I forgot what I actually wanted to test. Or even worse, that you quickly check emails or Slack, which brings you totally out of the tunnel and might take a lot longer than you initially thought. And so most importantly, what happens is that it makes you lose focus. Because what happens in your brain then is that you're doing a context switch. And research studies have shown that it takes on average 24 minutes to get fully back into a task that you started before. So we should really try to make this time for deployment as short as possible in order to get more productive and more focused. However, in reality, it looks like that if you test, for example, on multiple devices, because you might test something for different screen sizes or different target platforms, this time even gets longer and multiplies again. And as you don't do this only once a day, but you do this like 100 or 200 times, this multiplies a lot. So that's why we created a solution for this problem called Felgo Code Reload, which brings down the deployment steps to just 2 seconds and allows it to have the source code and the application deployed on multiple devices simultaneously. So how does this work actually? Well, Felgo Code Reload is available after you download Felgo from felgo.com. And it integrates nicely with your existing IDE, which might be Qt Creator, or it also works with any other IDE or editor actually. So you can use it together with Qt Designer, you can use it with Qt Design Studio, with Qt 3D Studio, or also with any other IDE like Visual Studio, or maybe even a text editor. The way it integrates with Qt Creator is that you can see here in this screenshot here on the bottom left, there is a green live button. And if you press this, the following happens. So there's 2 applications actually starting. The first one is the code reloading server, which checks internally for all the source code files if they got changed. And whenever any of these source code files changes, a new version is deployed to all the connected clients. And the second application window that's open is the Felgo code reloading client for the desktop platform that you're currently running on. And as you can see here in this video, is whenever you change anything in code and then hit save, in this example, I'm removing the Felgo image, you can see it updated instantly on all the connected devices. So with this video, you can see on the left-hand side the desktop application being live reloaded. In the middle, I have connected an iOS device, and on the right-hand side, there's an Android device connected. And this works with any devices that you have for deploying them for testing. So you could also add your embedded device there, for example. You could add, for example, a tablet, so you can test different screen resolutions and different screen sizes all at once, updated simultaneously. The way this works for mobile is that there is an application in the app stores called Felgo Code Reloading, which you can just download from the app stores, and then you can connect your mobile devices together with the desktop live server very easily by just pressing the connect to live server button in there. The cool thing is this also works if you have custom C++ code and custom C++ backend. So you can use all your C++ data models and all the C++ data bindings that are available. You can compile your own code reloading client for desktop, mobile, or embedded devices. And you can compile for any target hardware and all your embedded devices, the custom C++ versions as well. If you only use QML code, so no custom C++ code, you can use the out-of-the-box versions that are already provided in the mobile app stores. So there's one disadvantage, though, of this code reloading approach, which is that every time that you change something in any of the files, the main entry point is always the main QML file that you're reloading. So in this case, the main.qml file. This is actually not ideal because a lot of the times during development, you're testing something not on the main page, but maybe on a sub-page or a sub-item. And the way that the workarounds that you usually have is that you either set like the other entrance point that you want to test and comment all the different stuff that is leading there, or that you need to repeat all the testing steps to get the exact point there every time over and over again. So both scenarios are not ideal, are additional work to do, and that's why we came up with the next generation of code reloading, which is called Felgo Hot Code Reloading. And the main advantage there is the complete application state of your application, the whole QML state, is getting preserved the next time that you reload the application. And this is really awesome because, as you can see here in this video, we have on the left-hand side, we have the live reload version, and on the right-hand side, the hot reload version. And what happens here in the application, that I navigated to a different page in the screen, and now I'm changing the text and the title of this page in this video. And as you can see here, the hot reloading is already updated and still stays at the very same page, whereas the live code reloading version always starts fresh in the entrance point again. So I really want to highlight that this totally changes the way you code with QML. What happens is that you will save a lot more often, do smaller iterations, because you just don't need to wait for all this deployment time anymore. And so to summarize all of this, Felgo code reloading is a standalone tool which works with any IDE. It works with default Qt project and Qt QML projects, also with custom C++ code. It can be compiled for any target hardware, including also embedded devices. And it works for mobile, desktop, embedded, and also for web coming very soon, a WebAssembly version with that one. The only limitation that you get is that the actual reloading parts works with QML code only. So you can still use C++ code for backend, but the code reloading itself only works for QML because the QML files are then redeployed to the different target devices. This is also one of the reasons why we usually recommend to get more productive with Qt, is to use QML as much as possible. And not only in the initial prototyping phase, but also then during development, because here, actually we see a lot of times, we see Glide projects developed with a lot of C++ code, which actually wouldn't need to be developed in C++. Like, I cannot count how many list models I've seen developed in C++, for example. But these are actually not really required to do in C++, because there are QML components that are internally written in C++, so there is a really good performance with that, that you can use from QML. And then you just can modify the list model from QML very easily, still get the very same performance as you would have with custom C++ code, and you can do everything with QML with that. These models are JSON list model and sort filter proxy model if you also have sorting and filtering as a use case in your project. All right, so overall, we have seen this internally. All of the team members in Felgo are using this, and also a lot of the client projects and customers use this. And what we've heard from customers is that this feature alone really saves 10 to 20 hours per developer per month. Because given on how much it really dramatically changes the development process and reduces the waiting time and reduces any temptation to get to lose focus. Yeah, this is actually a very simple trick and modification that you can use like right away for your Qt projects. Let's now move on to another key point in the development process, which is writing code. The most important tip here is to use existing solutions as much as possible. You can usually see the experience of a developer, how much time goes into the research process before jumping directly into code. So how does the usual research process usually look like for Qt projects? Well, most of the times you'll start with your favorite search engine, most of the time Google. And this will mostly bring you to one of these two sites, Stack Overflow or the Qt forums, which are really great resources if you are looking for, yeah, like really minor coding questions. So how to handle a queue-string specialty or anything like that. However, if you are actually looking for like bigger solutions, like complete frameworks, that they're not the best resources you can use. So the next step is then usually something like GitHub, where there's also a lot of Qt projects existing and Qt frameworks listed over there. However, many of the frameworks do not really have a good description or any description at all, and this also makes it hard to find what is out there. Luckily, the Qt company also realized that this whole research and finding process for Qt projects is a bit too tricky currently. And that's why they have released or announced last week at the Qt World Summit. So Lars Knoll announced this at the keynote, announced the Qt Marketplace, which is actually a solution to these problems because it helps you to find solutions for Qt that are already out there and which makes it easily findable and easily installable. And we're really glad to be one of the initial launch partners for the Qt Marketplace, because we often hear feedback from our customers like this one from Oliver. So he mentioned, if I only knew about Felgo before, it would have saved us about 50% of development time compared to plain Qt. And we would have been able to focus on the application itself instead of recreating problem solutions that are already provided by Felgo, that are not unique or specific for our help. So we often hear some very similar stories like that, and that customers created their own workarounds and custom solutions to problems, well, that are already solved in Felgo. By watching this webinar, you're already actually one step ahead, because you're aware that there are solutions like Felgo available. So what is it actually that Felgo provides besides this code reloading that I just showed you? Well, overall, it's just a whole lot of additional APIs and components that extend the Qt framework. So you can use all of the Qt functionality and then add the Felgo features on top of that. All of the APIs exist for desktop, mobile, embedded, and also web. So they're completely platform agnostic. And they allow you to just reduce development time and write less code overall. So let's have a look at how much code you can actually save. We did a comparison actually of two projects, one written in vanilla Qt and one written with Qt and using the Felgo extensions. And the application that we are using here for reference, you can both check them out on GitHub, is the Qt World Summit application that was developed for the Qt World Summit going on last week, so for the 2019 version of it. And when you're having a look at the source code, at how much code lines it took for each of these apps to develop, you can see that it's really like a significant difference. So it's more than 90% less code written for the Felgo version compared with the Qt version. And they basically do the same, so they have the same feature set. So how is it possible actually to need so much less code? But basically because of the additional APIs and components that we provide. And I'd like you to focus on the next slide on the items that are in orange. The ones in orange are the ones that Felgo adds on top of Qt. And as you can see here, it's really a lot of different components for all kind of different use cases. So there are APIs, for example, for input controls, for navigation paradigms, for model view handling, multimedia components, etc., etc., etc. However, which of these components are most useful for your project really depends on your use cases and your project requirements, of course. So usually a very good starting point is to browse over this overview and have a quick look at what might be useful. I'll also share a link then at the end of the presentation where you can download a copy of this in the PDF version. And also a good starting point is to check out the examples and demos that we provide as part of the Felgo SDK. Because the examples actually combine like multiple of these components into one. And they really show you nicely how you can combine these and also show some best practices how you use the QML components in your projects. Some of the examples that are available open source as part of the Felgo SDK is, like I mentioned, the World Summit application that we did for the last week's Qt World Summit event. Then there is a weather application available in there, also an application for Jira time tracking, and many, many more. Actually, it's more than 60 different examples available. And all of these examples actually only use QML code, so no custom C++ code is used in them. While still having a native performance, really good look and feel, native user experience. So these are really one of the best resources to check out initially. And all of them work not only on mobile, but also for desktop and embedded devices as well. So I'll now show you some of the most important components in a bit more details that get used actually in most of the projects that we see from customers. Starting with the navigation components. So navigation is really a key feature actually in many of the applications. So how do you navigate from one page to another page? And what it really boils down is to provide a native user experience actually for the respective platforms. So the navigation paradigms actually change between an iOS platform, an Android platform, a desktop platform, and then also an embedded platform, and avoid then different kind of navigation concepts that are usually used. So what we're providing in Felgo is an abstraction of the whole navigation per platform concept. So you end up writing a code only once, and the Felgo components make sure that on all the platforms a native navigation concept is used. As you can see here in this video here is that, for example, on iOS, you're using a swipe back gesture navigation to navigate from one page to another. And you have a bottom bar navigation element there in the bottom. Whereas on Android, it's very common to have a navigation drawer on the left-hand side. And the tab navigation is usually on the top, not in the bottom. And there are a lot more things actually that are differing per platform. Like, for example, in iOS and Android, the scrolling speed of the list items is different. the sizes are different, so font sizes, default sizes are different, the fonts themselves are different, and a lot more. For example, buttons look different on iOS and Android, input controls look different, and all of these differences are abstracted away by the Felgo SDK. So you don't end up having to find workarounds for these per platform, because the Felgo SDK handles all of these differences automatically. Another really cool feature is the option to have adaptive or responsive layouts with Qt projects. So the way this works is that the Felgo components automatically take care that they have the best user experience based on the available screen size there is. So as you can see here in this video now, is that whenever I change the size or the width of the application, you can see now there is a left-hand side navigation, and there is a master detail view, meaning two different panes that can be added. When you switch this now to another platform like iOS, you can see that the controls look very different. The navigation changes, so from a bottom tab bar to a navigation drawer here. And this really saves a lot of time during development because you don't have to do this manually. And what you can see here is that you can also change for testing the resolution of your target devices and have a really like one-to-one simulation of how your application will look like on the real devices on your desktop PC. So this also saves a lot of time during development actually, because you can add your own target devices there, add your DPI setting there, add the physical screen size, and that then the Felgo components take care that the scaling is calculated on desktop, so you have a really one-to-one preview how the application will look like on your desktop PC. What's also pretty nice is that you can simulate different platforms, as you saw earlier. So you can switch between desktop target, iOS or Android target. And this also makes testing a lot more smooth because if you don't have a physical device provided locally, you can still use and test it, how it will look like on desktop. Also, if you would like to override the default behavior that the native platform abstraction is used, you can do this very easily by just overwriting on the component level to have like one component look and behave the same like for one platform, for example, using material style on all the platforms, or control it on an application level. So the whole application should on all devices look like an iOS or Cupertino style application. Another major feature is that is also really important for having like higher quality Qt applications is support of the notch, or also called an Android display cutout. Because Qt doesn't have the support right built in, so you would need to do like native calls to iOS and Android to get the height of the notch and also of the home swipe gesture, and do all of this manually, that you make sure that nothing overlaps these like the unsafe area of the screen, and to make sure that your application does not overlap any of the native screen navigations. With the Felgo components, all of this is handled automatically, so all the content that you're having within a Felgo page, make sure that it's only using the safe area, which is free to use, and to make sure it does not overlap with any of the unsafe areas. Like you can see here on the left-hand side, if you hold the phone, for example, on landscape mode, on the right-hand side, then by default you would overlap your items with the notch area, which should definitely not happen for applications. However, we are seeing this a lot especially for mobile applications using Qt without using the Felgo APIs. There's also more of these like native integrations available. Like for example, in Felgo, you can query the height of the virtual keyboard and if the virtual keyboard is actually currently shown or not. Because what should then happen is that you shift up all the page content, so the virtual keyboard does not overlap any of the of your input content, so the users can see what they're actually supposed to type in. And things like this all would need to be handled manually with plain Qt, which doesn't need to be by using the Felgo components. One more addition that's also very frequently used by customers are the native plugins or integration to third-party services and frameworks. So there is a whole lot of native plugins that comes integrated with the Felgo APIs. And so the way this works is, for example, for push notifications, that you just have an import Felgo 3.0 statement, and then you can use all of the components just like a regular QML item. And in here we're using OneSignal, which is a push notification provider. And yeah, you basically can start writing code as easy as that. It's just 5 lines of code, and then you get native integrations of all kind of different services, like for example, analytics and telemetry services, Firebase, Facebook, or monetization plugins as well. So key advantage here is that you don't need to worry about the internals of how the internal iOS and Android and also desktop integrations and third-party services, how this is handled. We just have a nice and clean QML API. And we are taking care of the updating and maintenance whenever there is a new version of the plugins, which happens quite frequently. If given that this is more than 10 different plugins, and there's 3 to 4 new releases every year, that quickly sums up and gets a significant maintenance effort. It's our part as the Qt technology partner, as the provider of the Felgo APIs, to make sure that always the latest APIs are used, and that also the latest APIs are working together with the latest Qt versions, etc., etc. So you don't need to worry about that. And also, if you have any issues with integration, you can always just ask us for assistance for these ones. Also, there is a couple of more, what I'd call it, more advanced components, but still it's pretty cool to know that something like that exists for Qt, which are components for augmented reality and machine learning. So there's a couple of demos and examples also provided open source with the Felgo SDK, and all of these work for mobile, desktop, embedded, and also automotive. So there's really cool use cases that you can handle with AR and machine learning components in there. Another really cool addition is the Felgo Cloud Services, which actually allows you to have a cloud-based backend without writing any server-side code. Because most of the time, resources for developers are either like front-end developers, but not necessarily like server code developers. If you face a situation like that in your team, then this is really a good addition that you can add to your Qt project, because it's very simple actually to integrate. It's just a QML component that you can add to your application. And then there's different features it provides. For example, it has real-time data synchronization with the data that is stored in the cloud. We use this feature in the Qt World Summit application that you can check from the app stores to synchronize the agenda that every participant can make. So the talks that you want to attend are automatically synced with the cloud. And whenever you, for example, have a second device, for example, if you're at home and you have a desktop PC or a tablet, and you'd like to synchronize the 2 devices, all of the data gets automatically synced between different devices automatically. There's a couple of tricky things that are involved there. So for example, what happens if there is not the same data set on these 2 devices? How to handle merge conflicts and stuff like that. And there is actually in the Felgo Cloud APIs, you can use the solutions that we are already providing for that. So you can choose between different merge scenarios and also use the built-in offline support. So you can, for example, change and modify the local state on your device. Whenever you get online, it gets synced. And if there is any issues with syncing, there is a different merge strategies that you can choose from. Also, there is built-in support for user authentication via email, Facebook, or Google login. And there is also some gamification features that you can use, like leaderboards, very easy to integrate. You can very easily style the whole UI of that, because that's also written in QML. So it's you can change the colors or completely change the page design of that. And also use the integrated user search and friend management. So basically you can send other users a friend request, and then there is different functionality that you can allow for these users, like for example, allow them to chat with each other. The chat is actually also available as a standalone product, so you can use and integrate a Qt-based chat very easily in your Qt applications using the Felgo Cloud system. Felgo Cloud can be run on our servers or on your own servers, so it's also available on premise. And it's basically a really cool alternative to Google Firebase, because not with every company is fine with storing all the data with Google. All right, so let's now have a look to further steps of the deployment and development process, which is the compile, deployment, and test process. So what we realized in doing more than 200 projects so far with Qt is that the actual building and distribution process is really taking a lot of time just to set everything up and to keep it maintained. Why? Because actually there is different Qt versions that you would like to support, right? And if you want to switch to different Qt versions, you need to test if everything is working properly. So what we usually see with companies that they're either having like a build machine or build PC set up, or that it is already integrated somewhere in the cloud using some kind of build automation. But then maintaining this build machines or virtual images or them is really a time-consuming process and usually requires an own DevOps to take care of this. The work for this that is required is only getting the more platforms that you want to support, because then you have a lot more building steps involved for that. For example, you cannot build for Mac on a Windows PC, you cannot build for iOS on the Windows PC or a Linux machine, etc., etc. And then there is a lot of different dependencies that might be there in the underlying platform. For example, there's different Android SDK versions, different Android NDK versions. There is different compiler versions, there is different Xcode versions, etc., etc. And all of this really sums up quickly and is really getting a time-consuming process that you actually, this time is then lost for the actual development of the application itself. And so that's why we came up with an own solution for that, which makes it really easy to build Qt projects automated. So the solution is called Felgo Cloud Builds, and it's available as well as an on-premise version, so hosted on your own servers, or you can use the cloud-hosted version by Felgo. And the way this works is that you very simply connect your source code repository or upload a zip file with the source code, and then you can trigger a build very easily by just the hit of the button. You can very easily select which target platforms that you want to build for example, iOS, Android, desktop, or also your target embedded device. And you can use any dependencies as well as you have, because you provide the source code for the project, right? The actual building process is then handled. And it's also very simple to choose from different Qt versions, for example, there, or different Android NDK, SDK versions, etc. So there's also an additional advantage that you can use there, is that the actual uploading to application stores or building installers is also automated in there. So you can, if you click on not a development build, but a publish build, then for iOS and Android, your application is directly uploaded to the app stores. And for desktop, an installer is generated automatically for you. So this is also an additional matter of convenience, that you don't need to handle the stuff on your own. As I mentioned, works for mobile, desktop, embedded, and also for web via WebAssembly. And what's also really cool is that you can customize the build steps there. So you can add any testing, unit testing, UI testing solutions with there. For example, Squishbones, PropLogic can be integrated, and you can customize each of the build steps manually. But the whole maintenance of adding new Qt versions, adding new compiler versions, this is all handled by us. And this is, again, really saving a lot of time. I'd now like to highlight another and last topic that is often overlooked in the research process, actually. And so the usual workflow is that a lot of research is going into solving project requirements. And what's often overlooked there is the option to also ask for professional help for any of the Qt service partners. Because with the professional services that you get, the chances are very likely that one of the partners already had and solved similar requirements that you're having. So it's really a good idea to, in terms of productivity and efficiency, to just ask one of the service partners if there is already a solution provided by them, if they already did a similar project like that, if they already solved the requirements. So that's also something that we provide on top. Besides of the SDK, we also help customers with developing their Qt applications in two ways. First is by providing development services, either on-site at your location, remotely, or in our office here in Vienna, where we focus really on HTML, UI, and UX development, also Qt application optimization, and it's really like an additional resource that you can use to help your existing project and software development team. And the second branch is then the trainings and workshops that we're offering for basically anything Qt related to help you work more productive and efficiently. All right. Also, what many developers don't know, that we are offering like a free consulting call initially to help you find out if there is a good match between your requirements and what we can offer. So just let us know, or send an email to support@felgo.com with your requirements and project, and yeah, that's easy to do and maybe saving you a lot of time in the long run. All right, and now I want to show you some applications that we developed to give you an impression of how fast development can actually be of Qt applications. So one of the applications that we started in an internal hackathon actually is an application for tracking time for Jira. So we are using internally Jira quite significantly for not only for project management, but also for time tracking. And the time tracking capabilities of the default Jira website and Jira mobile applications is, in terms of user experience, not ideal. So we developed an own one by using the Jira APIs. And that one you can find also in the Felgo SDK as an example. And you can also download it from the link here. The development time, and this is really a key thing here, is only three weeks for that one. So that already shows of how quick actually you can develop applications by using Felgo components. Another application also started in an internal hackathon is WTR for Water Rain, which is what I think is the cutest web app in these stores. So you can use it to browse the web on different on the web data, and all this makes it a very nice user experience. Only 2 weeks. Another application that we developed is an card game, which is very familiar, especially in the European region, called 31 Online. It's one of the top 5 card games listed in the app stores, has more than 500,000 downloads and a really exceptional rating in the app stores. Cool thing there is that the game is completely developed in QML and JavaScript, so no C++ code. And this already shows that even a game that really has real-time requirements is very easily doable with QML and JavaScript if you structure the QML code right. There's also a couple of resources for that on our website, and you can check the SDK examples for that. The example called in the SDK is called OneCard, which you can check out open source as part of the SDK as well. Development time there only was 12 weeks. And then for the conference application, which you can also download from the app stores, or it's part of the Felgo SDK, the development time for that only was 3 weeks. All right, so to summarize all of this, how does Felgo help you to save time? Well, first of all, by the just sheer amount of additional APIs that you can use on top of your Qt projects to help you to make a better user experience and higher quality Qt applications and less code and faster development time. Then besides the components, there are all the tools that are available, like live and hot code reloading, and also the cloud build server. So what is actually the next step so you can try this out and get started to use Felgo to develop Qt applications faster? There is a free evaluation that you can use on the link provided here on this slide. So there's a 30-day evaluation, and there's for an unlimited amount of developers. And there's within this evaluation, there is a 5-hour special currently that we offer still this year, where you can ask us anything and use our professional services to help you solve the project requirements that you're currently having. So just make sure to hit evaluation as a company when you sign up on the page below. And then you get an initial free call with our professional services team to find out how we can help you solve your requirements. We can do, for example, a prototype or proof of concept within these 5 hours, do a short training to get your developers onboarded faster. And basically, you can help you develop your application faster. All right. So thanks, guys. I'm now really looking forward to answering the questions that you have.
Thanks, Christian. Apologies, I know we had some audio challenges in the middle. Hopefully you could hear most of the presentation. We had one question already, so please submit your questions through the Q&A button, but I think we have some start questions already.
Yeah, all right. All right, there's one question regarding application size. So the application size, so it's actually the same as you're having with default Qt applications. So we brought the application size down to just 10 megabytes by removing all the Qt modules that are not used. Basically there's no like significant overloads that the Felgo components add on top. They're all written in C++, very lightweight in terms of application size.
Great, thank you. And are there any kind of other frequently asked questions from your side, Christian, that you could maybe start off with?
Well, one question that we hear a lot, of course, is about pricing. So how much is it? It's actually very similar to the Qt pricing. There's 3 different license tiers. There is the free version that you can use, which basically has most of the features provided, except some of the plugins are not available, and you have a Powered by Felgo splash screen in the initial launch of the application. Support there is only community support provided, and it's limited for maybe like hobby developers who are just trying it out and developing own projects for it. For startups, there is a startup or indie license available, which is 79 euros a month, which doesn't have any Felgo branding anymore, and adds all of the plugins like push notifications in there, and also adds email support on top of that. And then there is the license for enterprises, which is a custom pricing based on the target platforms that you're having. So for example, if you are targeting embedded devices and which one of them. It also depends the price then on how many developers are using Felgo in your company and on the support requirements that you're having. So there's different SLA levels that we're offering. So this is basically the most flexible option you can get. All right. Just checking, is there any other questions as well?
I think there's one. How fast are you adopting new UI patterns or native framework support for platforms?
Oh, yeah, good questions. So basically, as soon as possible, we start with the first alpha and beta versions of native platforms already. Start developing them, so they're ideally then available whenever the final release is coming out. So it really is our mission to provide the native platform best practices as soon as possible there. For example, the notch feature, we had this ready when the notch came out initially. And also, if you need any special services or any like special requirements that are really urgent for you, you can also use the included support offering then within the license. So we can make sure that this is developed as first thing. Also helps us then to prioritize.
Great. There's currently no more questions that we have, but please, like I said, submit them with the Q&A button at the top of the interface. We still got a little bit more time, so you can ask Christian some questions. Are there any other kind of frequently asked things that you could maybe shine some light on, Christian?
Yeah, so one frequent question is also if Felgo is open source. So there is a source code, an open source option available for enterprise customers. So you can get all the source codes of all the APIs and controls as part of that license. And all the demos are also open source. So you can get a source code license for that as well.
Great. I think that is all the questions we have for today. But if there are any more questions that we didn't kind of go through, you can send us an email at info@qt.io and we'll connect you with Christian. But I think that's it. That's all the questions we have for today. Thank you so much, Christian, for your presentation, and thanks everyone for joining. And I'll see you next time. Wish you a great day. Thank you very much.
To all of you as well. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.